We have a solution. The Whine No Whine Show, where you can be friended and offended all in the same hour, where we gather people from all different walks of life and perspectives, and we talk about everything that everyone has told you not to. Religion, politics, and everything under the sun. Nothing is off limits, and we do it all over a glass of wine. So grab a glass and join us as we save America, one civil conversation at a time.
3, 2, 1, action!
What is going on, Facebook? All right, so, we're pointing out, we have lots of new equipment in the studio for some of the new guests, so whenever you're talking, it's probably going to be straight across at that camera, and whenever you're talking, it's probably going to be over that camera. And if we're all talking, it's probably going to be in the center.
In the center, all right.
Yay!
Now we know.
Now we know. I need one of those cool things where there's a red light that goes off. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be so cool.
More technology we need. Put that on the list, Alex.
All right.
Production crew.
Noted.
Welcome to the Whine No Whine Show, the only show where you can be friended and offended, all in the same glorious hour. Oh, and boy, I tell you, America, I know y'all know we have a problem. We cannot seem to disagree without wanting to kill each other. I call it the zero to Nazi effect. It's literally the length of time. It's insert your insult. It could be, libtard, republictard, whatever insult is your flavor du jour. It's zero to that insult, because in any given conversation, it's the length of time it takes to go from zero to you're a Nazi. I will now punch you in the face and go outside and set fire to your car. That's how we disagree in America. But we have a solution here on the Whine No Whine Show. It's wine! Glorious wine! And on today's show, we're going to be drinking a fancy schmancy wine. I went to the YouTube and I looked up the word on how to say it. It's just a region in France, but I can't pronounce it very well. It's a Carignan. A Carignan.
You sound like a professional.
It's the Carignan region of France.
I know.
Francais. It's a Bright Willow Coteau de Miremont Carignan, 2016 model.
It sounds like an affliction.
Right?
My Carignan.
Oh, my Carignan's been acting up. Jeez. Anyway, that's what we're drinking on the show today, and I will tell you that this is a classic varietal of southern France, and this version is a perfect example from that region. Its flavors of the region abound with cooked blackberries, warm earth, and leather.
Warm earth.
Wow. What kind of show is
That
this?
sounds really good.
It's going to have an earthy taste.
Really
Yes,
good.
it's going to have an earthy, a very earthy kind of a taste. Yes, it's a big, bold flavor, and it's both on the nose and the palate. So take your time when we first grab it here to appreciate the different smells that you get out of it, that sort of thing. It has medium level tannins, and it's easy to drink at a young age. But we suggest decanting or air. I'm trying to get past some of these phrases without any kind of issue. So we got leather and young age all in the same thought process here. So
maybe a little too young.
yeah. So we've decanted it. We've let it get some air, and we're going to enjoy this lovely wine. And at the end of the show, we're going to rate the wine and tell you what we think of it. And then we're going to have that up on Instagram. All right, so if you guys have not subscribed to the messenger service yet, you need to, because you just go to the page, click on send message, and then get started. That subscribes you to our messenger service. You will get an alert 2 minutes before the show goes live, letting you know that it's live, and it gives you a link so that you can just go straight to watching the show. Makes it really cool, really easy to do that. And you also get to know the subject, a couple minutes ahead of time, because that's where we put it. And today's subject is going to be an interesting one. I will tell you. It's a subject that we really need to discuss in America, and we probably need to discuss it from 20 different angles. But we've got a topic title today that is, does race play a factor in lethal police interaction? So when there's a shooting, when there's lethal force used by the police force, does race play a factor? If so, how so? Too much, too little, whatever. We're going to discuss that on the show today. I'm going to get our guests to chime in with this in a second. They're going to give us their thoughts. But I want to let you guys know what the subject is. Y'all chime in. Let me know what your thoughts are. We've had so many comments on the shows, I can't get to them all, so our production crew is just going to, when a really good comment comes in, they're going to grab it and throw it up on the page. So really try to give me your best thoughts on this and good, serious, meat to your points. And those will be the comments that make it through, and our panelists will get to discuss. So, we're going to go to the shameless plugs section of the show.
Shameless plugs!
Shameless plugs. And I'll start with you, Saul.
Well, my shameless plug is I am Saul. I am the war chief for Tribe, the agency. And mine's going to be really simple. I am having this weekend, Sunday.
We're
We're
in the
having-
Coliseum.
We are having our second karaoke open house.
What?
Nice.
What?
All right.
Yep. What? We had one this past weekend. We're having one. It's in the Wimbledon Estates area. If you happen to be coming by and feel like you want to sing at some stranger's house, come on by.
Sounds like a good time.
Woo!
It's always a good time.
Kate.
I am Kate Davis, and I am with Crescent Creative Group. And my shameless plug is kind of twofold. Crescent Creative Group is a branding agency, and I'm working on a free workshop for those of you who have a personal brand of some sort or are working on your branding. It can be hairstylists or realtors or bloggers or whoever is working on branding themselves. I'm putting together a workshop. It's still in the works here, but if you're interested, this is the twofold, it's the other half. I'm wondering how many people that watch the Wine No Wine show might be interested in getting something like that. So if you are, go to my Facebook page. It's Crescent Creative Group, and there's a post pinned to the top, and you can comment on that. And let me know if that's something. If I get enough people who are interested, then I'll continue working on it. And if not, then I'll just kind of put the project to the side. So I want to know who all might want to learn how to brand themselves.
Yay! Shameless plugs. All right, LaToya.
All right, hi. I'm LaToya Scott. I am an insurance agent, I help people to get life insurance as well as Medicare insurance. So if you are looking to make an election as far as your Medicare is concerned, maybe you're aging in, or perhaps you may have had some changes take place in your life and you need to review your coverage, you can certainly reach out to me on my Facebook page at LaToya C. Scott. So it's my shameless plug.
There you go.
And one last thing. I am encouraging everyone, if you are not registered to vote, please get registered to vote. We're working on some campaigns. If you are in Walker County, San Jacinto County, or Liberty County, if you will check out Fred Lamont for Texas, you can check out the Facebook page and kind of get involved. If you need to register to vote, you can always go online or check out any of the voter registration locations in your area.
It's Fred Lamont Sanford.
Fred Lamont for Texas.
What is the odds?
State representative.
What is the odds of having Fred and Lamont all in the same name?
Well,
right?
Lamont, duh.
Oh, Lamont.
Instead of Lamont.
I thought it was Lamont.
Close enough.
Yeah,
Man.
close
Good for
enough.
government work.
Ruin my joke there.
But the T, I get where you were going though.
I used
But
to love that
register to
show.
vote. Register to vote.
I watched that show
And we
like
just
all the time. when I was
just
a
lost,
kid. Yeah,
like,
Sanford.
half
I
the
love that
You
show.
lost,
Oh, yeah.
You lost me.
Oh yeah.
Of course we lost you. It was
It's-
before your time.
You're like, Fred.
Yeah.
Fred.
I watched it when I was a little kid. Let me put it that way. So
Yeah.
yeah, that dude was hilarious.
He
Anyway,
was, he
yeah,
was.
he was something else. Anyway,
Fine.
okay. So can I do your shameless plug?
Get
Can
after
he do it for you?
But I want to make an announcement of something that I'd like
Okay.
to announce to people.
Make an announcement.
As well. Name's Dean DiBassie with First Choice Loan Services, and I'd like to take my time to a shameless plug. This is the first time I've been on here, and I'm screwing it all up. But however, it's okay. I'm supposed to be looking over there.
Yeah.
All right.
No pressure. No pressure.
I'd like anyone out there that likes to eat crawfish and have a good time with the family and listen to a band and just have fun, and also at the same time help people. There's a Pinch and Tails. It's a homemade home Houston fundraiser, and what it is to raise money for the homeless for homes. All the money and proceeds go towards money to make homes for homeless. So I encourage you to go out there. It's the 27th. It's Friday. It's 5 o'clock to 11 o'clock in the evening. I've been the last 2 years, but this year my company First Choice, we're sponsoring it. So I'm just trying to get as many people out there to show their support.
Very cool.
Outstanding.
Really nice. Really nice.
Outstanding. All right, so I have to give Dean's shameless plug here because Dean is a sponsor of the show.
Woohoo!
Yes. So let me tell you, I cannot say how much I appreciate the sponsors on this show. I was very selective in who I sought as a sponsor. I limited it to a small group of people, and they were all people who were very supportive of the mission of the show. And, you know, we actually have a serious mission on this show to try to save America one civil conversation at a time. And as you can tell by the topic today is no exception. We talk about very real, serious stuff. And so we really are trying to create a narrative where people can sit down together and actually have civil, sane conversation and talk about important stuff and be a part of the healing process. And so I looked very specifically for personalities that were on board with that idea. And Dean stepped up and put his money where his mouth is, right? And that's a super big deal. So I don't want to make light of that commitment. That's very important to me. This guy is a, help me say it right, charter financial, certified mortgage planner.
Right.
Certified.
You didn't get that right at all.
No, I didn't.
It's okay. It's all right.
That's why I asked. Dean is, Joe tries take two. Yes. Dean is, it's okay. Dean is a certified mortgage professional.
Planning specialist.
Certified
Good.
mortgage planning specialist.
What he said.
Certified
Yeah.
mortgage planning specialist. Why that's such a complicated thing to say, I don't know. But literally only like 1% of all the mortgage lenders in the United States have that certification.
That's cool.
So
It is cool. And
it's a big deal. It's a
it
big
is
deal.
a big deal. It really is.
It's a big deal. He's been in the business for 14 years. This guy knows his stuff. So if you are looking to buy a home, he is your go-to guy. If you're a realtor and you've been working with somebody that's maybe a little less than stellar on the lending side of the process, and you want somebody to make you look good, this guy's got the chops to do that. So I wanted to give him a big shout out. This is his first time being on the show as a sponsor, and he knows his stuff. He'll take care of you. So.
Thank you. Can you see my heart beating out here? I'm nervous as all get out.
Yeah, it's all good.
We can kind of tell a little bit.
Can you?
Got that deer in the headlight.
Oh, Lord. I need some more wine.
So-
You might be blushing
It's
now.
good.
Yes.
It's really
You
good.
weren't a
That's
minute ago.
right. So, listen, guys, it's a very serious topic. I'm
Absolutely.
even, as we speak, I'm trying to
It
invite
is.
a few more people to the show because this is a big subject. I want to know what your thoughts are. Chime in now because we're going to be coming back to the feed here shortly. And the subject is, does race play a factor in lethal police interaction? So, we've certainly had media out there. We certainly have had the press and a lot of visibility on certain cases. So I want to know what your thoughts are on this. Chime in. Let us know. The best comments are going to make the show, and our guest panelists are going to respond to your thoughts. You're as much a part of the show as the panelists are. So now 1 minute bullet point. 1 minute.
1 minute.
1 minute bullet point. Kind of a thought on the subject. Saul.
Well, I'd have to say that yes, it does play a role in it. Part of it is probably not from the angle you guys are thinking about. I think part of it is environmental. Where you come from will determine a lot of that, as far as how you experience and what you do in terms of dealing with other people. So it's not just a race issue, but it's a environmental issue. Where you come from will determine how you view certain things. So it's not strictly race, but it is motivated by racial environments.
Okay.
My thought, I completely agree with that, by the way. My thought is, I don't think race should play a part in those things. I think that it does. But on the flip side of that, I think also media puts out the good meaty stories. And so when there's a drama of
Controversy.
pulling the race card, pulling it out and saying that's because of race, therefore it's going to be great on media, I think that plays a lot in what we know
Don't get me started.
as the public. I know that was a completely different Wine No Wine show episode,
I
so
mean,
we won't go
it's-
in there.
That point is the whole reason
This
why
is
this
very
show
relevant
exists.
in
Yeah.
what
Right.
this whole
Yeah.
conversation
Right,
is
so
about.
I think that the media plays a huge part in that as to why we may feel like race plays a big part in it. But I think that's, I don't know, I think that race shouldn't play a part in it. But I think that obviously it can, but only because of the media.
Okay.
I kind of danced around that topic. Sorry.
You did. No, honestly, the point
Might have been
came
longer than a
across.
minute, but whatever.
That's okay.
And I'm gonna tag on to it.
All
Okay.
right, tag teaming it.
Let's what?
Absolutely. I do believe that race plays a factor, and it shouldn't. You're absolutely correct. It should not. I don't think that it has just begun, though. I think that this is how it's been for decades, and I think because of the media, now we see it more. It's more publicized, but I don't believe that it should not. But it does.
Oh, okay. I'm going to take this away from you. I've been told to take this away from you.
Yeah, you're
I
a gadget,
I can
just
share.
a little too
I can
much.
share.
Yes, no, I need to, I just need to pass it over
All
to
right.
him.
Yeah.
No, it's
Yep, old habits die hard.
all
Oh.
right.
What?
Oh.
Butterfingers.
All righty.
This awkward moment brought to you by Samsung.
All right.
S8.
Yes.
Samsung, you can send me an S9.
You can pay me later.
Free shipping next step.
Yeah, right.
I've made my point.
Okay,
I
okay.
said
The
yes.
This is what the 9 looks like. That's right.
No, right there.
Oh, look.
So
Cool.
Samsung,
Wonderful.
Samsung has delivered really fast. Thank you.
All right. Honestly, in my opinion, I'm going to say that yes, I think on perhaps maybe a minute, small occasions it does play. But also at the same time, I'm going to say is I see there's so much polarization.
Mm-hmm.
They're focusing on, unfortunately, the people of color that have been shot. And that's what they're focusing on. We don't hear about the white people there or the black people that are shooting the cops. They're focusing on what they feel they're trying to create a frenzy, which they've been very successful at doing. The media is very powerful. They're going to let you know what they want you to know. They're doing this intentional, and it's causing a lot of problem in our world. That's my opinion.
Okay. Okay. All right, guys. I mean, it's a tough subject, right? There's a lot of heat on the subject, and I honestly believe, like we've been told forever, when you're in public, when you're out with friends drinking wine, this kind of thing, which is the show is set up this way on purpose. The guests don't get to know the subjects before they show up.
Nope.
So
Absolutely not.
this is on purpose because that's how life happens. It's not like a group of friends says, "Hey, let's meet up at the restaurant tonight and have some wine," and somebody goes, "Okay, well, what's the subject? I need to be prepared and have my talking points ready to go."
Man, I wish the
No.
world worked that way. Though.
Right?
That would make things so easy.
But
Yeah.
you just have
It
conversation.
would, actually. We could prepare.
Right, but we've been told for so long, don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics, all
Don't
this
talk
kind of
about
stuff.
race.
And consequently, we all suck at it. And so when somebody has a different viewpoint, the emotions and tension gets crazy right off the bat, and it blows up, and we can't have a civil conversation. When if we just all sat down long enough and
That's
talked
not
to each
happening
other,
here.
It's
Right.
not. This is really good.
Absolutely.
isn't it?
It's good.
When we sit down together and just kind of share wine and enjoy each other's company and that sort of thing, it's like, you know what? I care about you. I like who you are. And so if you have a different view from me, I want to understand why. You're my friend. I may still totally disagree with you, but I at least want to know where you're coming from.
Okay.
So that's what we're doing. So you guys chime in with your thought on this. I know it's a big topic here. I want to ask a question on this subject, right? Because I 100% agree with the media, right? I mean, I just kind of made the under my breath comment, this whole show exists because of how the media operates. The media is very much about creating us and them, because that dissent causes drama, drama sells, it attracts eyeballs, right? We're the opposite with this on this show. We're about we groups and bringing everybody together, so it's a totally different angle. So I agree with that point. Let me ask you from a totally different angle. Where lethal force usually happens, right, is when there's lethal threat, usually, right?
Perceived.
Perceived. That would be a better clarification.
Yeah.
Perceived, and there's a whole conversation inside that statement, right? Is there a factor where we have more of a focus on activity from particular groups that are committing more or less activity? Is there, in other words, is a certain segment getting brought to the press because it's being dealt with more often? Is it just by percentage that we're dealing with these issues? And then combine that with the factor that we have media now involved, and the media is saying, "Hey, I've got drama, and I want to pull out the one situation that looks the worst possible and
flipping through. Here's my card.
But I think that a lot of it is now you have people utilizing platforms such as Facebook to share these stories. And I don't think that, when we look at mainstream media, that we've seen a lot of press about the killings that are taking place in the black community and in the brown community. Just as what you said, I'm not aware of the number of police being killed and gunned down, in violence as well. So I'm not aware of that. I won't speak to that, but I will say this. I do believe that at the end of the day, there is a target on black and brown people, particularly men. I do not feel that it is the media's fault. I think what the media is doing is shining light on, again, what has been happening. But you have a lot of people who are taking this in their hands, and they're showing their own videos. They're not the media. They're just citizens who have witnessed things. I think that we're not seeing enough police that are actually being charged, and that in itself is an issue, and it raises a lot of questions and a lot of concerns, and it causes a lot of dissension between the community as well as the police, and it brings us apart. So I think it's layered. It's a very layered problem. That we're not really dealing with, because at what point does it become murder?
Yeah.
Instead of self-defense.
One thing you said that I can 1,000% agree with is that it is a layered and complex issue, right? There's a poverty angle to it that is colorless. Right?
Very true.
Right?
Very true.
At the end of the day, I don't know 2016 numbers. The last time I looked this up was 2015 numbers. There were 24 unarmed minority or black males that were killed in 2015, unarmed. There were 18 white males, right? And not to make light of 24 and 18, right? But when you look at the percentage of all interaction and all this sort of thing, it's a statistically infinitely small number. And so out of those pool of 18 and 24, we get pulled cases where did the cop make a bad judgment or whatever else. But when you're looking at the overall number of stops and the overall number of all the interactions and all this kind of stuff, it's almost a non-existent number. So we get the media then, who has a motivation to sell drama, picking from an already infinitesimally small number pool and showing us the worst case scenarios. So, and I think that fuels a lot of issue that we have beyond that, right? But a lot of that stems from, if you look at all of them, poverty situations, and poverty drives a lot of crime, right? And so that's the question I was asking earlier, is that there's a segment of society that I think it gets painted being a racial issue of violent crime. There's a very specific sector of our population that commits a very high majority of the violent crime, right? I think the more common factor is not race. I think it's more economic.
Yeah. Now that I agree with totally.
But it ends up being played out societally as a racial issue.
It's easy to pull a race card when in reality that's not always.
It's an economic issue.
Yeah. Bottom line, we do have a major issue, as you speak of, with impoverished individuals who are committing crime. But I still feel like there are those that are not impoverished, who come from great families, just as those impoverished do, but they were not committing a crime, and they are no longer here. They're no longer a threat, and so it becomes, well, they weren't a threat in the beginning, but it was perceived that they were a threat. And so, as a mother to a little black boy, it does make you very sensitive and very aware of, now I have to have a conversation with my little boy that I shouldn't have to have, because it's not like in other households that are not from African descent that they're having those conversations and saying, hey, you have to watch out. Whenever a cop stops you, this is what you do. This is what you don't do. I've written, I don't think it's fair. You guys don't have to have those conversations.
I disagree with that a little bit. Not a lot. Only a teeny tiny bit. Okay. I mean, I think you're on the right track. But I think that everybody should have that conversation with their kid. When you get pulled over, here's the respectful thing to do. When there's a police officer involved, you respect them and you handle the situation this way. I think that everybody should have that conversation. I don't think that it should be limited to, like, white people don't need to have that conversation.
Well,
we're targeted a little differently, and
I
when we're pulled over, it's a completely different experience.
I understand that.
Completely even being a woman versus a man. When my significant other was pulled and he was driving and I'm in the passenger seat, he was treated very differently than when I get pulled over, even as a black woman.
Right. Well, let me
We have real
give you
quick.
this quick.
I was just saying, real quick. I wanted to get a good comment that came in that's on this subject. So I didn't
sure.
want to go too far from this comment. Danny Daniels, thank you for chiming in. He said, attitude towards the officer plays more into this than the race. If an officer asks you to step out of the car, don't ask, what did I do? Just get your blank out of the car. You can ask then. Officers are human. They're going to profile you whether you like it or not. Your job is to stay safe. Guard yourself and be on the guard while respecting the authority the officer represents. Complaining that the cop should do this or that is all good and fine, but doesn't touch on the root of the issue. So there's another, another person kind of, oh, there's more. I used to have long hair. I did too, Danny.
Me too, right down to here. Right down to here.
Back in the day.
And I will tell you, I was
absolutely.
profiled. I was profiled. I was put in the back of a police car. We spent 2 hours while and ironically it was a minority officer too. My girlfriend, now my wife, were put in the back of the police car. We sat there for 2 hours while he literally stripped my entire car down because he smelled something sweet inside my car, which is BS. I've never smoked anything in my life other than a cigar. And it was totally made up, but he just wanted to search my car because I had long hair.
You did long hair,
And I had
that's
a bunch of band equipment in the back of the truck at the time. So he totally said, "Yep, rock and roll, hippie, drug smoking dude. I'm just gonna yank him out of the car and I'm gonna find all kind of drugs." Anyway, I was profiled. Anyway, sorry. Profiling? Yes, I was put on the hood of my car so many times while they illegally searched my car. I had no drugs. I was polite and cooperated with the officers every time. I had nothing to hide. I'm still standing here, never been shot or beat up by an officer. I was never thrown on the hood of the car. The guy that stopped me was just really rude. But anyway. All right, so there's another person saying attitude plays in. You had a comment?
Well, let me give you this scenario, because this is a real life happened to me.
Okay.
Now, I'm coming out of a grocery store. These kids are playing games, they're running around acting crazy. One of them bumps into me, hits the gun that I carry with his elbow.
Wow.
He goes running into the store. I'm actually talking to a client on the phone. As I'm sitting in my truck, I say, you know what? I expect to get pulled over before I make it out of the parking lot. Sure enough, as soon as I hang up the phone, there's a tapping on my window. I don't know why he goes like this, because you don't roll windows down anymore. But I'm like, all right, fine. So
I'm old, you're old.
So
sure, I get it.
So I roll it down, and he's like, hi. I said, can I see your license or registration? And I said, well, to my detriment. I said, but I haven't even turned the car on yet. What could I possibly have done? And he says, I just need to see your driver's license. So I handed him my driver's license. He says, no, I need to see your other license. So of course I got it. I handed him my license, and this is kind of a funny thing. He looks at my license, and I used to be considerably heavier, and he hands it back to me and goes, "Man, you were really fat."
Whoa!
Now,
Oh wow!
And we,
so he was ageist and weightist.
wow.
and we laughed about it. Now, the story here isn't so much that all that stuff happened. The fact that I have a license for it, I was fine. He treated me politely, whatnot. Now, if I said this was a police officer that was white, everybody would be like, well, of course he did all that. But what if I'd share with you that he was black? Because he was. I'm Hispanic. Race never entered into anything. It was all about professionalism. It was all about doing your job and treating me as a human being. And that's the fact that we're kind of overlooking that. It used to be the police force used to be predominantly white. Why? Because, like you said, socioeconomic factors. They were able to go to school. They were able to go get to that particular race. Now, if you look at the police force, much like you look at the military, there's a lot of minorities in there. Why? Because it's a good job. They look for it. So, the argument that, white police officers are shooting, black Hispanics or whatnot at a greater percentage, well, I can tell you that I've seen more Hispanic officers being racist towards Hispanic people because they're harder on them because of the perception that we're taking it easy on them because, hey, we're all Mexican. So it's almost a reverse discrimination that happens in some instances that drive some of that to effect because you don't want people to look at you like you're taking it easy on other people. So it's really a weird dynamic.
There's a lot of weird data out there. I saw a recent study that showed that it was less likely for a white officer to pull a gun on a minority because they were afraid of the perception.
Yep.
Which could cost them their life.
Yeah.
Incidentally.
So again, it's
Absolutely.
like, are there situations where where race plays into it and there's undue force, etc.? I think there's absolutely is. And I never Kinsey, I never can remember his name. Charles Kinsey was the black therapist. He was working with a person with autism in Florida. Do you remember this case?
Yeah.
The young gentleman got out. He had a train car in his hand, and he had managed to escape the facility. Right? Police were called. The therapist was talking the kid down with autism, which if you know anything about autism and how it escalates with them, you know.
Really quick.
Yeah, right. So he's soothing him. The officer shows up. He had his hands up. He's explaining the whole time. I mean, I watched the video, and this was a case where I 100% agree. He ended up getting shot. Right? The officer, I still don't understand. There was no guns. Anybody had guns, but he still got shot. Thankfully, he got shot in the leg. He was not killed. He was just injured and everything else. But in that situation, the officer was charged, and the officer is doing time. So it was something that went horribly wrong, was handled horribly wrong, but justice was served, right? So it's not a good case of, example of, well, here's another case where justice wasn't served. There's a lot of times when I've really looked at the information or data and I'm like, well, dang it. I mean, I want to support those cases like that, Charles Kinsey, all right? Where I'm like, yeah, I'm with you on this. That was wrong. It was handled wrong. This guy should be charged and he should be, sent to prison, right? And then there's other cases that come up. I'm like, well, the guy was like hardcore resisting arrest and, like had a gun in his pocket. And I mean, like the Alton Sterling situation. I'm like, the crime he was committing was not like crazy. He's bootlegging CDs, and I mean, it's still a felony, but that's kind of silly if you ask me if it's a felony. But nevertheless, he was committing a crime. But from the time the cops showed up to the time he went down and to the time he was wrestling with them the whole time, and he ended up actually having a gun in his pocket where the officers testified that he was reaching for. He never got to it, but the fact that he had a gun in his pocket is, I mean, like. If I'm the cop, I'm like, I don't care what color you are. I'm telling you to stop reaching for your hand. You're resisting arrest. It's going to get ugly fast. You know what I mean?
That's understandable, though. I think that's understandable.
But I mean, that was one of those cases where everybody was up in arms. The media painted it all kind of crazy.
Let me put my stuff in there.
All right, sorry. Okay. Go ahead. I've been talking a lot. I've been
sitting here listening to all this. Okay, what I'm going to say is this, and some people will agree and some will disagree. But that's what this program's all about. Okay, but the way I view it, and I'm sure there's a few out there that view it as well, I think it's been, from my recollection, ever since the ordeal with Trayvon Martin.
Yeah.
Okay, and the
that
president.
Was kind of a big case.
President. Oh yeah, and if you think back, when all this stuff really escalated, was after Mr. Obama, or President Obama, excuse me, referenced that he could have been his son. Okay. After that, you saw so many different things happening. Groups arrived trying to, I don't know, he fueled it. I mean, I don't recall having black and white problems prior to then. I thought I didn't see it. Honestly, I didn't. But it got polarized, and he was condoning negative activities, in my opinion. Honestly. And there's one thing, what happens, okay, this Black Lives Matters, they come up. What about Harvey? Where the hell were they? They're only out to stir shit. They're not out to cure or take care of anything. What good do they do?
He's a sponsor.
Right, I know.
I mean, hey, it's
he's both S words.
But I mean, honestly, I love everybody. But I think the unfortunate part, and going back to what you said, there are some officers here if it keeps going like it's going, because you're not in their shoes. They will get killed as a result of their fellow partners going to jail over something to where maybe it was or wasn't justified. They're going to hesitate, take 3 seconds to decide on what they're going to do, and they're going to be dead. how are we going to advertise that? How's the media going to polarize that? The media is they show what they want everybody to see, and they're focusing solely on that everybody's after the black population, and it's wrong. And they're zeroing in on just that, not just your Hispanics and others, and it's flat wrong.
I think, and maybe let me ask you. I think one of the difficulties that we face in this issue is that, because I've experienced this myself, right? I comment and interact with people all the time, right? Of all colors. Anybody that knows me on Facebook, and I stir the pot
all the
right?
time.
But I'm genuine in my comments, right? And I made a comment on a feed that was about Black Panther, and it was I said I just look forward to the time when we can celebrate a movie like Black Panther just because it's a great movie, and not because it was an all black cast or like when that just doesn't matter, right? We just go it was a great movie, right? Let's just celebrate that because we don't see that it was an all black cast or there was this person or that person. It was just like, hey, there was a great movie, great plot, really enjoyed it. It was all that kind of stuff, and then that turned into a big debate, and it took fighting through the conversation to where the person who kind of took it the wrong way, like we talked it through, and we got to a great place in the conversation. I said that kind of laying the groundwork, so to speak, and to say that from a person like my perspective, I think Dean the same, and I think most people today, right? I mean, just to be frank, white folks who say, you know what, I really don't care that you're black. I like you. You're a friend of mine, right? I have friends. Some of them happen to be black. I hate the phrase "I have black friends." It drives me crazy.
That's hard for me.
I really don't care,
honestly, because they're equal. But why do we throw it in there? I feel uncomfortable saying it.
Right. So listen. I think there's there's the majority who have that take, right? But on the flip side of the aisle, right, is there was a whole bunch that had to happen to get here, and to lose sight of that on the opposite side of the aisle, it's saying like we can't just not look at how race plays into it. You can't just right now we can't not acknowledge that Black Panther was the first movie with a all black cast or predominantly black cast and all that sort of thing because it's a milestone. We can't not acknowledge that President Obama was the first black president. It has to be acknowledged and all that kind of stuff. So in other words, I can't be sitting here on the side and go, well, why can't we just be, I didn't vote for President Obama. We don't share the same ideology. You can't be on my side of the aisle saying, why can't we just say, I'm glad he was president and I agree with his politics. Why does it have to be about he's black? Because we have to, because he was the first to do that. And just the same kind of like with the police interactions, there's a lot of stuff that gets looked at from a race thing where the white person is saying, why does this have to be about race, right? Absolutely. But on the other side of the aisle, you're going, because it's been that.
I understand that.
We came from it, and it was an issue, and it was a big issue. And it was the 60s, so. What do we do? What do we do?
It did drop off for a long time, because there was a problem. But I'm telling you, in my mind, that I see, is when that comment was made, it escalated. Things have just
speak to that.
Escalated.
I want you to speak.
Big time.
She's been trying to say.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I remember my comment. You can.
No, you're right. You know me, and you don't even know me. But I would forget if I didn't say it out loud. And you don't even know me, but you know that. I was just gonna take what you said about it was a thing. Well, you're right. It was a thing. But coming from a millennial, I hate that title, but whatever. But coming from that, where I didn't technically live through that era, right?
Most of us did.
Does it happen? Well, I know that, but I'm just saying, like, for me and me growing up, really race never was an issue. Race was never anything talked about, never anything thought about. Everybody's been equal in my atmosphere, in my environment, in the way that I was raised. So that's never really been a second thought to me. I'm like, you're a beautiful woman. What does that matter?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So that being said, can't we get to a place where, yes, we very much acknowledge that was a thing. Yes, that happened. That was a thing. Yes, we should acknowledge that Obama was the first black president because he was the first. But does it have to stay about that? Like, do we have to continue living and relating to that when it's not really about that? Do you know what I mean? Like, does it have
I
to
understand. I understand where you're going.
Can't we get to a place where it's no longer that's what we're looking
It's
at?
going to take a long time. It's going to take decades. Now, I will say to the Black Panther credit, Black Panther was a milestone as a woman of color, as a woman, period. It wasn't just about, black and white. It was
a woman thing,
It was
too.
a woman thing.
Yeah.
I mean, from just being
and it's
a
right there
woman.
with Wonder Woman. In that
really
sense.
was.
Yeah,
It
powerful
really was.
woman,
It was very powerful. And it was huge in our households, in our family, in our community. I've talked to so many because it was so layered.
Mhm.
It was a very layered movie, and if you go back and you kind of look at it and you see, it's not that black people are like, oh, it's a black-white thing. Black Panther for us wasn't a black-white thing. It was, first off, it was a comic, and you have a lot of people who, like myself, I went and saw it because it was Black Panther and because, it was Black Panther. But I know others who went and saw it because they just love comics. And it was, I read comic books. I read about Black Panther. I knew about this long before it became the thing it is now. But I would say,
I literally said the same thing.
yeah, there are a lot. Like, I have a lot of
nerd.
family who are comic nerds. I just wasn't. Okay, I liked the female.
collected them.
I loved the female empowerment aspect of it. I thought it was very rich in that way. But then to see my son, it was his reaction to it that really stuck with me, and other little black boys, because we don't, for our children, we don't have a lot of references to show them men of power, men of intelligence. Right, heroes. We don't have that. And so to think that it's a black-white issue, it wasn't a black-white issue so much as it was, my son was able to look and see a hero that looked like him. That's his words. Mommy, well, he looks like me, And then my son says, well, Mommy, I love everybody, but I'd like to see more people that look like me. He doesn't see race. He's not looking at it like, oh, well, you're white or you're Mexican and I can't talk to you. His best friend is a little Mexican kid, and he loves him, and I love him. So it's not about race all the time, more than it's about, we don't have those kind of references for our children, and even when I was growing up, I'm not a child, I'm not a product of civil rights era per se. I didn't grow up in that era. I'm an 80s baby,
The best generation, I will say.
So I put my foot in my mouth when I said that I didn't grow up then, because obviously that's
I'm an 80s baby. I'm an 80s baby.
Right.
So we grew up with everybody. But the truth of the matter is again, we've never had a hero. We've never had a superhero.
Kids.
Until Black Panther.
I said, kids, I love y'all. Senile, doddering old fool.
Oh, but I love the movie. I'm going to tell you. I mean, it was absolutely fabulous to see, because you don't even see. I mean, where's an all-female cast that's leading?
I'm
an
Marvel.
all-black cast.
I'm a Marvel fan.
And you and I actually talked about Black Panther long before. This time. It was huge for us, and I loved it, and one day I hope we get to a place where it can just be, that was a great movie, but for right now, it's breaking a lot of barriers, it's opening a lot of doors for actors and actresses who have not had, opportunity. It's opening up economic opportunity for...
Danny, there's a couple comments on the screen here. I want to chime in and get y'all's thoughts on.
Who is Danny?
Danny, he's busy.
I like him.
You do have rights. Know them.
Yeah. He's busy commenting.
I like it.
He's a musician friend of mine. His wife just released a book, and a sci-fi book, so giving her a shout out on that. Angela is her name.
Shameless plug.
Angela Daniel. Look, freebie, shameless plug. I'll send you a bill, Danny.
You're welcome.
Danny said, he goes, you want to focus on some videos online. I focus on thousands of stops good officers make every day. They stop all colors every day. The media focuses on the ones that'll tweak your heartstrings. It's their job. Again, I'm sure your father never jerked someone out of a car and beat them to the ground because he thought they were smoking weed. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's, that's the reality. Jessica Brown chimes in. She's been on the show a number of times, and very sharp gal. Love her. And she says, Black Lives Matter. Here's a perfect parallel. Here's a perfect parallel. Right to life. Why do right to life people make every election about abortion?
Very true.
Why? Take a guess, and then I will tell you. She said, what? Race has always been a problem. Wow. So, a couple good comments.
I disagree with that.
With what?
With that, race has always been a problem. I mean, honestly, I think it's been more polarized again after that one comment. I was in the Army. I was with a lot of black people. We were all we were all treated people the same. We fought together in the wars. We were the same then. I think things have just changed because the media is trying to form us and create a frenzy. And I'm convinced of that, and I will not ever be convinced otherwise.
Well, I love.
There's so many other things that are left out that are not. They polarize. They focus on what they want. Just like when I was overseas, the American Force Network. All you see is what they want you to see.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So much stuff was going on over here. I didn't have a clue. And this is a perfect example of it. They're dictating what they want us to see, and they're focusing on it. And it's not right. It's not right.
So let me ask you this. Danny Daniel said something. I'm going to ask you guys about a video here. He said, you do have rights, know them. Don't assume them. If an officer asks you to get out of the car, it's for his safety as well. The problem with Americans is that you don't know your rights, and you assume a lot based on what you think it should be. It doesn't work that way in the real world. So there's been some examples of, and this is almost kind of back to you, Danny, some examples where a white guy is long rifle carrying, and showing the interaction with police officers when they arrive, and how he gets treated. And then they film the same kind of interaction with a black gentleman, long carrying, same rifle, and how he's treated by the police. I've watched the two. Absolutely a difference between the two and how he was handled. Indisputable. Video evidence, right? That's out there. You can YouTube that and search it. So I definitely think there's perception issues that have to be dealt with that are out there. Then there's questions like this, where we have Dylan Roof in Louisiana. He openly stated beforehand that he was wanting to start a race war. That's why he did what he did. He went into a black church and killed 8 people, and he was arrested, politely put into the back of the car. They actually stopped, I think, and got food, if I remember the news correctly. Got food for the individual, during the arrest process, which to me sounds crazy. Now, somebody may be able to correct me on that. I don't know, but I seem to remember that piece of data. So there's definitely situations where I look at them and trying to be objective and trying to look at both sides and say, yeah, that's sketchy. That's not cool, right? And I think we have both sides. We have the officers now and the issues that they're going to deal with where they're hesitating. And I've seen new data that says that, right? That says white officers are actually more afraid to take lethal force and lethal action to pull out the gun because of what they're going to be judged as and the perception and all that kind of stuff and the media frenzy that follows it. And then you have those situations where they're like stopping for food and, the craziness, right? So it's darned if you do and darned if you don't. I don't know. Right. So Danny,
that's
comment back and see if you've seen that. But what are your thoughts on that?
It's every individual case for itself.
Well, there's no happy medium. Here's the thing, and maybe this is a really extremely.
I wish there was a happy medium, but there really isn't.
But,
I don't
so let's go with this for a second. Let's say if a rabid dog is attacking you.
All right.
If a rabid dog comes at you, do you really care what color that dog is?
Hell no.
And see, that's kind of the tipping point. You have to look at the actions of the individual, color aside.
Right.
Based on what they're doing, that should determine
how you react.
Very true.
The problem that we have is just as you said. Me, personally, if you come at me and poke me in the chest, am I going to draw down on you and shoot you? No. And I can tell you that because it's happened to me at a foreclosure that I've gone to, where the guy told me, I'm a boxer and I'm fixing to whoop your butt and do all this other stuff. And I just kind of like, whatever. Because I'm comfortable enough that I'm not worried that person's going to do anything to me. It has to I really have to feel like my life is in jeopardy for me to draw it down on you. The problem is not everybody is geared that way, and I think that's part of the problem.
I agree.
We have some high-octane, yippee-ki-yay, crazy people
that are
carrying badges, that are adrenaline junkies that are ready to shoot you at a moment's notice because that's how they're geared. And I think that's part of the problem. We have such an emphasis on taking care of the crime that we overlook the sheepdogs that we have taking care of the herd.
Very true.
You know, if the sheepdog's no good, the herd's going to be in trouble. And I think that's another
Good
layer
analogy.
that goes with it. We have to have people that have the right heart, the right mentality, the right understanding, and know that the only way that I am going to shoot you is if I feel without a shadow of a doubt that my life is in jeopardy. And most of these people are not geared that way. And that's part of the problem. That's why we see things like that. Because, one, they're scared. It's a situation that not everybody is comfortable with. And two, they don't really know. There's no real SOP on how to handle that. Unless you do this on a regular... I mean, you were in the Army. You did close quarters combat. You go into a building.
No, actually I didn't. I wasn't in combat or anything.
Well, no, I'm talking about when you go into training. You walk in a room and you go... And you get to see what it's like to go turn a corner and suddenly a person's there. And you have to determine whether you're going to shoot that person or not within a split second.
That's fast.
So there's a lot of training that's involved. And if you're a person with a hair trigger that you're so scared for you that you're going to shoot anything that pops up in your line of sight, there's going to be some casualties.
You're in the wrong job.
You might be in the wrong profession.
Yeah, you might be in the wrong job.
That's the first
Yeah.
half of the problem.
Go get a desk job.
But may I stick in one thing?
Yeah.
My mom, she always used to say, and this relates to so many things on so many different topics. She was so right. Love you, Mom. But a few bad apples ruined it for the rest.
I was just gonna say that.
I mean, that falls under the category for this and so many other things because it affects your opinions.
Yes.
And it affects everybody else that doesn't deserve to be treated the way they're being treated. Major example is the mortgage industry. What things have happened. This is a whole nother show in itself.
Yeah.
But I won't go into it. But hopefully everybody out there
Frank
get my
God, all
point.
that
If you think
stuff.
about just not only that, but a lot of things in life that change drastically on us. It's the few that ruin it for the rest. There's a lot of honest people out there. Come on, right?
Clickable moment.
But the rest of
empty
us.
glasses.
No.
Oh, empty glasses, Joe.
We cannot clink with an empty glass.
I was just going to say that while yes, what you just were stating is the first half of the problem. That there's a lot of people with trigger fingers or whatever you call it. I think the other half of the problem is that the media emphasizes those trigger fingers. It goes back to what I said at the very beginning.
They polarize it.
Yeah.
And therefore, well, you got me distracted with wine. It's both of you guys. Both of you guys had the perfect 2 points, and I was going to just kind of tie those with a bow. That was where I was going with that.
Now we can
Before
clink.
I was distracted with
There
wine.
we go.
Click.
Now we have.
Clickable
Yes.
moment.
That sounds better.
Yes.
There we go.
Can you tell the difference in the sound?
It's bad juju to
Yeah,
clink with an empty
exactly.
glass. All right, Jessica Brown said, and I want to kind of we'll wrap up with this thought. Jessica said, FYI, it is our constitutional right to only be searched with a warrant, even in your car. Fact. The fact that police do otherwise without a warrant should outrage citizens, especially those who tout my constitutional right for guns, freedom of speech, yada yada. So, how well do you think it goes to remind folks, remind the police officers of what your constitutional rights are? And she says we should be outraged. You have to be stopped with a justified reason for being stopped. You can't be asked for identification without a reason for being asked for identification. A legal reason for detainment. Right? That has to be stated to you. So a lot of times when they bait you with the question, sir, do you know why I stopped you? Doesn't really matter why I think you stopped me. Why did you stop me? Tell me why you stopped me.
You go to Sandra Bland with that.
So I was going to say.
Sandra
so
Bland
how does it
is
play out? There's there's certainly no.
Sandra Bland knew her constitutional rights.
I will say
she fell within those.
I will say, having watched that, right? I'm like, I see both sides of the argument. Right, I go.
What was the reason for her getting arrested?
So she ran into the wrong person to
that
be
was
playing.
not warranted.
Right, I 100% agree. I don't think that officer would have given too much different of a reaction with anybody because I think that was his. I'm an a-hole with a badge.
Right.
right?
There
And
are
how-
those out there.
The
And
bad apples.
believe me, I ran into them, right?
A lot of
Bad
brown
apples.
on the outside. They're rotten apples.
The guy who pulled me out of the car and stuck me in the back of the police car for 2 hours with my, then girlfriend while he searched my car because he smelled something sweet, which was total BS, completely fabricated, completely unfounded,
That's good.
and he acted like a jerk. He was that guy. He was that same guy. And if I had tried with that guy to say, oh no, what on what basis are you pulling me out of the car? He would just probably punch me and then pull me out of the car, put me in cuffs, right? So there's definitely those people.
You have to have tact, though. Even in that situation, you have to
Yeah.
have tact.
So I mean,
Respect.
that's,
Danny Daniel.
That's the. But to Jessica's question or statement, know your constitutional rights and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, we should, with all police, be able to lock down our constitutional rights, but I don't know
With
that always.
respect.
I don't know that always works out.
But
I
even
have a-
when
But
you're
she wasn't.
respectful,
But she wasn't being respectful.
even
though.
whenever, but what was she supposed to do? Speak in a more quiet,
But-
in a more polite voice.
But
No,
no.
You see what I'm saying?
But
That's my point, is that we run oftentimes when you get stopped, because it's happened to me before, where I've gotten stopped and I'm really friendly. Y'all see, I'm not a threat. And
I was gonna say, I can see a crazy. I can see a hair of crazy over there.
well, I won't say now. I won't say it.
I can see it. Just
I
a
am
little.
a woman now. I am a woman.
Licensed to go
Let's
crazy.
look. Let's hear her roar. But
You heard her talk about how
I
much
would
she
drink
liked the
to
woman
that.
power
She
aspect
did
of
say
it.
oh
that.
yeah, of course.
She's got some gold bracelets under the seat. Just,
There's a
But-
level
Magic
of
lasso.
respect.
even whenever you are
No,
respectful,
you're talking
though,
brass knuckles.
and even whenever you are, really polite and so forth, when you know that you're getting stopped and it's not warranted, and you're being profiled, it's really hard to just be like, well, yes, and well, thank you.
I don't.
And so you want what?
It's hard,
oh,
but you
well,
should
hold
still
on.
do
Let
it.
me grab this. And again, going back to the comment of the individual who said with your constitutional rights, if I'm well within my constitutional rights, then
Right.
why are you stopping me?
Right, but I think that even
I
if
think
it's,
that's the issue.
I agree, but I think even if you may interpret it, which it is a personal interpretation, if you interpret it as being difficult to be respectful, that doesn't give you an excuse to not be respectful. I think you should still,
Yeah,
abide by those
absolutely.
things. Even if you're under your breath, you're like, man, I shouldn't have been stopped. I was doing everything right. But that doesn't give you an excuse to not respond to the officer.
Well,
And
respectfully.
even when you are respectful, because I will say, in my case, I was respectful.
And I believe you.
I was totally respectful because I'm very big on respect.
and
I
you
have an
didn't-
issue
and
with
you didn't get a gun
disrespect.
pulled on you.
I did not get a
So-
gun pulled on me, but I got a lot of attitude. I mean, from the moment that the cop, and this was a woman cop. This wasn't even a man.
Well,
this
that's
was
part
a
of the
woman.
problem.
I know. Well, that's a
No,
whole nother
I know.
That's
And
a
I'm just
whole
joking.
nother-
She did joke.
I'm
No,
just
no,
joking.
No, that's a whole no, seriously.
We
that's
do
a whole
joke in
other
here
topic,
too, by the
though.
way.
It really is
That's
one
a
other
whole other
topic, but I was
topic.
joking just for
Yeah.
the record, so that we don't get a bunch of hate mail going on.
I don't
was
want any
joke.
hate mail, but it was a woman who stopped me, and the moment that she approached my car, I knew I was in the wrong. Let me be real clear. I was speeding. I
Right.
was. And so it was completely warranted. She came with total attitude. I mean, from the moment I rolled my window down, and I'd already gotten out my insurance and I had my
Right.
license because I knew I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But that still didn't give her the right to
Correct.
approach my car and be totally disrespectful of
I
me.
really want him to
As
speak.
though what? Is there a...
He's holding back
Let her
so
finish.
much.
Let her finish.
Spit it
Let her
out.
finish.
I'll
let her
hold it
finish.
back.
I mean,
Let
are
her finish.
cops allowed to just approach
No, I
us in
agree.
total disrespect?
No, I agree.
No, but
Even though you know you're wrong, I still deserve respect.
yes, you certainly do.
Respect goes both ways.
But
I'll
you know,
end that by saying that.
unfortunately, this is the
You
case.
know, that was
In
the
my
reason.
opinion, my outlook on this,
Mhm.
okay? You don't know what the last two polls that she had, what the people did to her.
Very true.
Okay, so you cannot make that judgment
Mhm.
off of her. And to go back to the reason, you're being pulled for a reason. You said you were being, what was the
speeding.
phrase?
Profile.
Profile.
Oh.
Okay, you're not being
No, in
profiled.
my case, I wasn't profiled.
Okay.
But I'm saying, not in that particular instance.
Okay, well,
no.
my point is, and this comes true with anything in life that I've learned, it takes us all some time. If somebody has an attitude, there's a reason. Give them a little break. Because you don't know what has happened within their lifetime. And I tell you what, again, it goes back to the media. They're giving people reasons to disrespect our police officers. So you don't know what happened the last 3 or 4 times they pulled somebody over. But we're so quick to make judgment on them. You can't do that.
But that's the same
And
thing that happens to black people, though.
Well, it happens to everybody. It's just not a color thing.
It happens
It's
to
not just a color thing.
Let each other
It
finish.
It's
happens
not
to
just a color
everybody.
thing. Right.
You guys
Everybody
you guys
gets
are
that.
saying the same thing. I'd like to point
Yeah,
that
yeah,
out.
actually, yeah.
Y'all
No,
are
we're in
agreeing.
total agreement with
Yeah.
one another.
But cut them some
We're in
slack.
total
But we're
agreement.
You know
so
what?
quick to judge the police officer
I'm going to give you
for being, we all have bad days.
No, I
I'm going to
agree.
give you a
Everyone has
quick
bad days.
example on that, right? I got pulled over by a DPS officer.
A lot of them are nice. I've got breaks numerous times.
I've
never had a break in my life. I'm just saying.
I've had a
Every
couple.
time I've been pulled over, I've never.
I've only had a couple, but I've had some big ones that were breaks. But I got pulled over by a DPS officer, and he was everything that you're describing, right? I was speeding. I wasn't crazy speeding. I was speeding,
I wouldn't either.
right? I pulled over, had my driver's license ready to go, insurance ready to go, and from the moment I rolled down my window, he was just a capital a-hole.
Yeah.
Right? And I was just like, dude, I mean, in my head, I'm going like, what the heck's your problem, man? Calm the hell down, right?
Nice.
And so I went through the whole process. He wrote me the ticket, and I waited for him to write the ticket, right? And after he wrote the ticket and gave me the ticket, I said, officer, can I make a comment? And he was like, what? I mean, like, I said, hey, man, I just want to thank you for the job you do, man. I said, I know what you do is hard stuff. I don't even have a clue. And I said, so I wanted to wait until after you gave me the ticket to thank you for your job, right? And his whole freaking demeanor changed, right? He just like, facially, everything changed. And he was like, thanks, man. Just slow down, right? And but it totally floored him, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, speaking to his point, I think you're going to run into, there are the people who just generally are, I mean, forgive the words. They're people who are just generally pricks, and then they get off on a power trip and having the badge.
But
and
can
all
we
that
all
kind of stuff.
have compassion, though? I think on both sides, because you mentioned you don't know what the last 2 stops were, but you're in the service industry, so there is a level of training that you have to have.
We're also
where
human.
You can't absolutely, and I'm also in the insurance business. And let me tell you,
Preach.
Sometimes emotions.
Sometimes
There's a reason I don't have hair. Right, is that a wig?
Oh, let me tell you. It absolutely is. I want y'all to see. Let me know if you like it. Is it cute?
If you're in the insurance industry for any length of time, you're just going to pull out whatever you have.
And that's the point.
Lord.
We're all in the service industry. We all have to have compassion. Compassion has to be on both sides. And so you can't just say, well, you a police officer and, oh, well, I got to show you a level of compassion, and you can't come to the table with the exact same. So I think there's a problem with that.
That's another thing. How about focus on how much these police officers do for communities with the young kids and everything? I'm starting to see a little bit of it shown on TV. The cops do a lot of good things for people in all communities.
Yeah, no, I won't say all.
But, well, a lot of communities.
Okay.
But the thing, you just don't see that.
Well, I was going to say, they do more than what people are aware
And what
of.
do? They give bad news to people. They got to be the bad guy.
Can I input something really short?
I give bad news to people.
Short
Here's my really quick thought, wrapping up my opinion on this topic.
Yes.
I think that after everybody's been talking for the last hour, or however long we've been on this show,
I
think that I've heard 50-50 both sides.
I think so, yeah.
I've heard extremes of it being a quote-unquote race card, but really it was just that the person was belligerent, disrespectful, therefore the cop pulled the gun. And I've heard the extreme other side of the cop hesitates because he's afraid of pulling the race card. And I think at the end of the day, it has little to do with race. And there are profiling examples, but I think that the overall thing is the way that you handle yourself, the location that you're at, the way that you're presenting the situation as it is as people. I think that we can all agree that at the end of the day, we are all people. We are all human beings. We are all colorless in a sense.
Absolutely.
And at the end of
Blood's
the day,
the same color.
Exactly. I think at the end of the day, it is very related to the situation, case by case, layer by layer, and not specifically race is the reason that this happens. Because we've mentioned many examples on this hour show of one extreme and the other extreme, and at the end of the day, the media can highlight whatever the hell they want. We live right here in the middle, and that's my opinion. So boom.
Boom.
That's very
good.
Very
You know,
centrist
very
of
good.
you.
Thank
Very
you. Thank
centrist
you.
of you. You know, that's a
And
good,
world peace.
yeah, yes, and world peas.
Peas.
Yeah, world peas.
With my
Lots of
carrots.
So we all
Lots of
to
water.
we all to
Lots of
sum it up, or we're at the closing?
Well, we
We'll
have
continue
We're summing it up
We
because
have to get our
I
grades.
Yes.
really need to leave.
Yeah, I'm actually.
There is a
I
sense
gotcha.
of urgency.
Yeah, I'm
That is
actually
going
rushing
on.
because somebody's doing the pee-pee dance over here.
It's me.
Oh,
I'll be
really?
real. It's me.
Okay. Hey, aren't you glad it? Never mind, I'll say it on the air.
Yeah.
Okay.
well.
So I will tell you guys, I've had this bottle 3 times.
Man, it's good.
The first time I had it at my house, I was just like, I love this wine, right?
It's
Second time I had it on the show, the bottle was not as good. It still got a strong rating, right? But it was not anywhere near what I felt it was at the house. This bottle for me was much more like the first bottle. I was much more happy with it.
So it's like taste by
What do
taste.
you attribute that to? You
Yeah.
think?
You know, you get different amount of time that you let it breathe. You get, I mean, there's all kind of factors that play into it. So, anywho, the wine that we're drinking today, Alex, do you have it up on the screen? Yep. All right. The wine that we're drinking today is a French Carignan, and I don't even have the card in front of me. I did good to remember that word. All right. So it was a pretty tasty wine. The guests are going to rate it.
Rate it.
Oh my God!
race.
Joe.
Why does everything have to be about
Why
race?
everything about race?
I was literally, this is the perfect example of Freud here. I was literally going to say, we're going to rate the wine, and after today's conversation
We're gonna race
on
to the restroom.
such a sensitive race-related issue,
It's
and her racing to the bathroom, it was,
You're not alone.
we'll run together, lady.
I want to see who wins.
it was a,
It'll be me. I'm just saying. I'm closer to the door.
She's got longer legs. taller.
I'm-
Longer legs.
I'm so glad we
Take my
have
shoes off.
wine on the show. I'm so glad we have wine
Alright.
on the show.
All
All right, so
Yeah.
Saul, we'll turn it over to you.
Well, I shall give it a 3. No
All right.
explanation, just simple
Okay.
3.
4. Simple explanation. I liked it.
All right. Well,
I'm making this fast.
for me, 4.5. I really enjoyed this wine. Consistently, it's been a really delicious wine. It is definitely a kind of a big flavor. Got to let it decant for a while to let it open up and mellow out.
Yeah.
Would be wonderful with a steak. I definitely could see any kind of a hearty meal with it for sure. I loved it. So.
I gave it a 4, and I think chocolate, dark chocolate.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
It would be
It would
wonderful.
totally be good with dark
Ooh,
chocolate.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And 4, I'm extra short
Dun,
because I know
dun,
the ladies need to go to the restroom.
There we
Since
go.
we're
Oh,
announcing
yeah.
it to the world 15 times, now the whole world knows. We're going to call it a show right
Yes.
now.
Yeah, we
Yes.
are wrapping the show
Wrap.
just so they can get out of here for the
Call
night.
a wrap.
Yes. All right. Thank you guys
We're
for
good.
tuning in.
We're good.
Sensitive subject today. As always, we do not
But
shy
we all love
away.
each other.
Absolutely.
That's right. We do
It's
not
empty,
shy
but-
away from the big topics. There's a little bit in there. Thank God.
Mine has very little.
There we go.
Yeah,
All
there
right.
you go.
We don't shy away from the big topics, and
Nope.
I encourage you guys, start the Wine to Wine show in your home. Invite your neighbors over, bust out some wine, and talk about the serious stuff, because I believe that's how we will save America. How can we possibly find solutions if we can't even sit down at the same table
And
together
have a conversation.
and have a conversation? We've got to try to understand each other and get a feel for where each other's coming from. And I definitely feel that this show kind of accomplished that, and we had some great viewpoints from both sides of the table, shared some great comments from you guys. So,
Thank you, Danny Daniel.
yeah, we'll be back
Lots of
next
great
week.
comments.
We'll be back next week, Thursday, for the Artist Edition of the show, 7 o'clock, and we are out, I think.